Hello, we're Lilith and Lara here with Coffee, Cakes, and Castles, where we will be covering the 20,000 to 25,000 castles of Germany. We'll be talking about historical facts, myths, legends, and drama.
Today we're diving into some fascinating history, and we will be talking about a castle that was reduced to ruin, a castle that now belongs to a prolific wine family, and much more.
Hello, I'm Lilith from America.
And I'm Lara from Germany, and we're just two girls who happen to love all things involving coffee, cakes, and castles, especially when you can have coffee and cake inside a castle. And today we're diving into the political drama of the archbishops, brutal legends, and several castles.
Rüdesheim am Rhein is home not only to wine, but also to several castles. Today we'll be starting with the wine. Because that's what it's known for. And why I went there. Rüdesheim is in the Rheingau wine region of Germany and is known for their Riesling. And while we were there, my husband and I went to Rhein Welt, which is this huge, it's not a winery, but it's a place where you can taste a bunch of different wines. And that was really fun because you get a little bag of coins and then you can go up to the wine vending machines. I don't know a better term for it, but that's kind of what it was. Yeah, you go up and you put your coin in for the ones that you want to taste, and then you get your tasting pour. So we got to try several different wines, and they were really good. We found some good ones. We took a bunch of bottles home with us. And then not in Rüdesheim, but Kloster Eberbach is just a short drive away. And we were also able to go there, and they've been making wine since 1136. So that was really cool. Yes.
That is so cool.
Their wines were also really good. And the woman who did the tasting was excellent in explaining things and talked us into taking home more bottles. Yes. And we still have one bottle that we got in Rüdesheim. Yes. So this is their ice wine from the Drosselick Winehouse in Rüdesheim. And the cool thing that we found was there were so many different places that you could taste wine at. So definitely worth a visit if you were into wine tasting. And
I want to go now.
We should go. I would go again. It was, if you kind of look up what people say about it, some people say it's a little bit on the touristy side, and it definitely is, but I would for sure go again for the wine tasting. Yes.
Tourists.
We are tourists. Nothing wrong with that. Yes.
We're proud of it. We're visiting like the world.
Exactly. We want to go and see all of the things and do all of the things. So I would go back with you.
Nice. So we have another place we have to go. That is, how will we ever manage to visit all those places?
I know. I've been looking at the map of Germany again, and I've been trying to find out how we can fit it all in.
We need my comic.
We do, yes, because there were some areas around Rüdesheim that I had wanted to go to that we didn't get to, so better in driving distance, yes. And one of them is a castle that is also a winery.
We love that.
So we'll get to that one eventually. And then there's also the Seilbahn Rüdesheim, and that is a cable car that goes over the vineyards, and you can take a hike where you can see the Niederwald monument. And if you continue along, you'll see one of the castles that we're going to talk about. You can see the ruins of Ehrenfels and then a fake castle ruin, which we will also be talking about today. And then there's a cafe overlooking the vineyards and the Rhine River, and some really cool things to see in Rüdesheim are the Drosselgasse, and there's also some really great restaurants, and of course places to taste wine. So definitely worth a visit. And as for visiting castles, we'll start with Burg Ehrenfels. If you would like to visit, it's located on the eastern bank of the Rhine River by the vineyards, and it's only viewable from its exterior. There's a hiking trail that will take you close enough to view the castle, and you can also consider a river cruise to have a nice relaxing view of Burg Ehrenfels along with other castles on the Rhine River.
This is so nice. Sounds great.
Yes.
So we heard a lot about the wine, and it's a very special topic for us because wine is so good. But we want to dive into the history now. And before Burg Ehrenfels rose above the Rhine in its stone glory, the hillside already told a story. In 938 AD, a tower stood in its place, belonging to the Diocese of Mainz. Then, in 1208, the Archbishop Siegfried II of Mainz would commission his ministerialist, Philip von Bohlen, to build a true fortress. Philip von Bohlen would never see the castle completed. It was his wife, Beatrix, who would oversee the final stage of construction, and by 1220, the completed Burg Ehrenfeld stood on the steep slope above the Rhine. And the first mentioned recorded history of Burg Ehrenfeld appeared in 1222 in a court document ordering Beatrix to hand Burg Ehrenfeld over to the Archbishop Siegfried II.
And we have to talk briefly, or maybe not so briefly, about Archbishop Siegfried II von Epstein, because we could not leave out the political drama surrounding him. We have some familiar names involved with the Welfs and the Wittelbachs, though not the same Wittelbachs that we've discussed before. When Archbishop Conrad I of Wittelsbach died in 1200, the cathedral chapter in Mainz split into two factions, with one faction backing Leopold II of Schönfeld and the other supporting Siegfried von Epstein as the new Archbishop of Mainz. Siegfried lost the initial power struggle and was driven out and fled to Cologne, and there he aligned himself with the Welfs, which gave him enough military backing to retake both Bingen and Mainz. A lot going on. Siegfried was then consecrated as bishop by Guy Pehr, the Archbishop of Rheims, which was the papal legate and cardinal. In return for Welf support, he crowned Otto IV as king. Pope Innocent III recognized Otto as king, and in 1201 declared Siegfried the rightful Archbishop of Mainz. And now we get to the real drama, because Philip of Swabia wasn't going to let Siegfried's rise go unchallenged. After Siegfried fled Mainz and joined with the Welfs, the Stauffer faction struck back. Siegfried had been elected by only a minority of the cathedral chapter, so the pro-Stauffer group, who were loyal to Philip, responded by electing their own rival archbishop, Leopold von Scheinfeld, the Bishop of Worms. Suddenly, the Archbishopric of Mainz now also involved the larger Welf-Stauffer rivalry, and Philip of Swabia, the Stauffer claimant to the throne, backed the anti-Siegfried faction, while Siegfried's alliance with the Welfs and his crowning of Otto IV made him a political enemy of Philip. And why was there all of this fighting? Because the control of Mainz meant great influence, and whoever held Mainz held one of the most powerful ecclesiastical and political offices in the empire. This would take way too long to explain here, but there's some great videos on YouTube that explain why Mainz was so important, and maybe we can get a little bit more into it when we visit Mainz.
Maybe, yeah. That's a good
Yes.
idea.
And after being driven out, Siegfried later returned with Welf support, seized both Bingen and Mainz again, and was ultimately consecrated as archbishop. Pope Innocent III's recognition of Siegfried in 1201 stopped Philip's attempt to install an archbishop that was allied with the Stauffers. Siegfried's influence only expanded from there, with records showing that in March 1206, Innocent III elevated him to cardinal priest of Santa Sabina, a title he held until his death in 1230.
That's so crazy.
And though Philip had tried to block him, Siegfried II von Epstein ultimately prevailed as the Archbishop of Mainz, and in 1208, Philip of Swabia was murdered in Bamberg. Yes, he was murdered, but not because of anything we've already discussed. His assassination actually came at the hands of Otto von Wittelsbach after Philip refused to approve a marriage between one of his daughters and Otto IV. So like we said, lots of drama. So it wasn't even because of all of this political drama, warring factions, everything like that. This was over a marriage.
This is crazy.
Yes.
Lots of drama.
Lots of drama.
In this little part of our story. Just yet, it has been lots of drama. Let's jump back to the castle history, because Burg Ehrenfels, along with the Mauseturm or Mouse Tower, was used to collect toll rights for the Rhine beginning in 1298. And they formed an important toll and navigation control center for Bingaloch, which is a narrow area of the Bingen Reef. And in 1350, the castle was expanded upon by the cathedral provost of Mainz, Karl von Falkenstein. He extended the central castle area. In the 15th and 16th century, the Burg von Ehrenfels would also have additional stories to the main castle, gardens, an outward, and a new ring wall added on. And Burg Ehrenfels would remain under the Archbishop of Mainz until its destruction in
1689. And what happened to Berg Ehrenfels? From 1618 to 1648, it would be occupied by Swedish soldiers. Will it survive the 30 Years' War intact? It would be destroyed by French troops during the 1689 Siege of Mainz as part of the Palatinate War of Succession when it became a casualty of scorched earth.
Hmm. Moving on to its architecture, in the early 13th century, the castle had a trapezoidal inner bailey with a narrow courtyard, a three-story palace facing the Rhine, a shield wall with battlements, and two round towers on the northern slope. And the northern slope was protected by a moat. In the 14th century, a time when it was used as a residence of the archbishops and electors of Mainz, as well as temporary stronghold for the cathedral treasure. It was expanded to include new upper stories and crowns on the flanking towers, which rose to 33 meters in height, a second battlement, and a circular hall, a second residential building next to a gateway, and an additional gate with drawbridge. Remains of the castle has belonged to the state of Hessen since 1945, and they kept what is left of it preserved.
Yes, and I do have pictures of Berg Ehrenfels that I can post because, as you'll see, this one truly is a castle ruin, but you can still see some of the walls of the castle, which is pretty neat. And not a castle, but since it worked in tandem with Berg Ehrenfels, let's talk about the history of the Mausoturm, especially because it has an interesting, if a bit brutal, legend behind its name. The Mausoturm was probably built in the 13th century by the Archbishop of Mainz as a watchtower and a toll station. It stands on a small island in the Rhine, and a Roman tower is thought to have originally occupied the site. In the 10th century, Archbishop Hatto II of Mainz incorporated the earlier structure into his place of rest, which he called Hottenburg. In 1258, the tower was altered and added to the toll station of nearby Berg Ehrenfels, which became an official customs and collection tower. So all the ships passing through had to pass through this area. And again, if you check our Instagram, like in the pictures, you can see how there's Berg Ehrenfels on the bank, and then the Mausoturm is kind of right across from it. And it was enlarged in the 14th century, strengthening its function and controlling the Rhine with the traffic and tolls. And from 1631 to 1640, the Mausoturm was under constant embattlement. In 1689, the tower was burned to the ground by the French, and it remained a ruin until 1855, when King Friedrich Wilhelm IV restored it in a neo-Gothic style. And after restoration, it served as a Prussian signal tower and later as a lighthouse until 1974.
Hmm. So we've come now to the legend of the Archbishop Hatto and the corn mice. And a popular legend says the tower's name comes from the story of a cruel archbishop of Mainz named Hatto. In the tale, Hatto denied the poor access to his granaries during famine and burned them in a barn, mocking them as corn mice. As punishment, thousands of mice swarmed the tower and ate Hatto alive, giving rise to the name Mouse Tower. A 1493 illustration in the Nuremberg Chronicles depicts Hatto being eaten by mice, showing the legend's long cultural presence. And once again, we have a popular legend that remains unsubstantiated but has been passed down through the years.
Yes, and it is not a pleasant legend.
No, it's not. It's
No.
really weird.
It's gruesome on all accounts, I would say, for the people and for Hotto. Let's move on to our next stop, Bosenberg. At first glance, it might not look like the kind of castle you'd expect to find along the Rhine. Rather than perching high on the banks of the river, it's what's known as a lowland castle. A lowland castle is just as it sounds. It's a castle that's built in the the lowland or the plains. Here's a twist. Even though it's a lowland castle, it is locally known as the Oberberg or Upper Castle due to it being higher than the Brahmserberg, which we'll get into in just a little bit. And again, I do actually have pictures of this, and it's they're pretty close together. It's kind of fun that they're calling it like the Upper and Lower Castle. And the Bosenberg is located right in the heart of Rüdesheim on Rhine. It's a striking white residence, and if you're walking through Rüdesheim, you'll see it, but again, you might not immediately recognize it as what it started as, which was a medieval castle. You can view the exterior, but it's currently closed to the public and belongs to the Carl Jung wine family, though not to be confused with a famous psychologist, Carl Jung. This Carl Jung is known for pioneering alcohol-free wines because yes, when we
That's
were,
good
you
too.
can taste, yeah, you can taste their wines in Rhein Weinfeld. And when I first saw Carl Jung, I was like, wait a
You're
second,
like,
that
"Mm."
name sounds very familiar. Was he also like famous in the wine? No,
What
this is
has
a
he done?
totally
Like,
different family.
yeah.
Yes. How did he go from psychotherapy to this? Yeah, different
Interesting
family.
way.
Yes. And the Bosenberg stands at about 90 meters above sea level and sits at the western end of Rüdesheim's iconic and historic core, forming part of the Upper Middle Rhine Valley UNESCO World Heritage Site since 2002. And although it's currently blends into the townscape, historically it was one of the most visible fortifications in Rüdesheim, especially because of its very tall Romanesque Bergfried, which still remains today. And it's the dominant surviving piece of this medieval structure.
Okay. So Bosenberg was likely constructed at the end of the 12th century as a family residence and administrative center. And early on, it consisted of a nearly square residential complex built around a central tower or Bergfried, which was a typical layout of small noble seats along the Rhine during this period. The castle belonged to the Fuchs von Rüdesheim, or Foxes of Rüdesheim. The Fuchs von Rüdesheim were an established knightly family in the area and fit with the 12th century Rhenish free knights who would have held small but strategically placed estates to act as local enforcers and intermediaries between the archbishopric and townspeople. They were part of the regional lower nobility of the Middle Rhine and belonged to the Ritterstand within the hierarchy of the Deutsche Adel, ranking above mysterious but below high nobility. And by the early 13th century, the Fuchs family prominence started to fade from records, and as with many small knightly houses, the Fuchs family either ended or was absorbed into other families through marriage or inheritance. In 1407, the Bosenberg passed to the Brömser von Rüdesheim family, and in 1474 it was acquired by the Boos von Waldeck family, who would hold it over 350 years until 1830. And the the Boos von Waldeck family were an old Rhinish ministerial family who held other castles in the region and were involved in some feuds
Feuds.
and we can talk more about them when we get to Waldeck Castle in a later episode.
Yes. And I have to say, the Fuchs von Rüdesheim or the Foxes of Rüdesheim is probably the coolest name that I've
Yeah,
heard.
it's amazing. I love it.
Yes.
I
I
have
would
a
love.
friend and her name is like Fox, and I just love it. I love her name. It's amazing.
That's so cool.
Yes.
I would love like a fun name like that, like surname.
Yes.
Counts of Schönbrunn Wiesentide purchased the property in 1830. And as a side note, we should add that the House of Schönbrunn are an ancient noble family of the Holy Roman Empire and held offices through the centuries in both the Catholic Church and the Holy Roman Empire. So again, there's some big names in here. And if it sounds familiar, you may have heard us mention it when we talked about them in the Würzburg episode.
Mhm.
And they would make several large modifications, which is why it looks as it does today. In 1836, they demolished all of the medieval buildings except the Burgfried, and then they raised the tower even higher and added Gothic revival Merlins to give it a romanticized medieval silhouette. And in the mid 19th century, wine merchant Baptiste Sturm transformed part of the old fortifications when he converted the former moat into a vaulted wine cellar. The moat had once been a defining feature of Bosenberg's medieval defenses and approximately 9 meters wide and it encircled the castle on all sides. Now a vaulted wine cellar. Um, and it's
Yes.
in its original form, access to the complex was controlled by a single drawbridge, making Bosenberg a compact but surprisingly well-protected lowland fortress. And after Sturm's death, his widow commissioned a Gothic revival villa in 1872, designed by Philip Hoffman, though some sources also credit Franz Schadel with involvement in the project. And something to note, the Burgfried or tower is unusually tall for a lowland castle. It's a double-stepped Romanesque tower that later owners heightened even further, as we talked about. And again, if you check our Instagram, I do have a picture of this, and you can see the difference between like the building and then the Bergfried. And since 1938, Bosenberg, as we said, has belonged to the Carl Jung wine family, and they actually invented their own process for the alcoholization of
That
wine.
is so cool.
And they still produce wines to this day that you can try at the nearby Rhein Welt, which we did. We did try their alcohol-free wine, and I have had alcohol-free wine, and it was terrible. And then we tried the one
Oh,
by Carl Jung at
yeah.
Rheinweinwelt. It is very good. Yes.
So you just
So,
gotta move here,
yeah.
especially when you try just can't drink alcohol. We have some really good ones.
Yes. So if you cannot drink alcohol or do not drink alcohol, there are still some options here, thanks
Hmm.
to Carl Jung.
So the
Change that
Brömser
together.
Castle, we're just moving on to it, to the Brömser Burg, and just going by looks, I would say this looks like a fortress. This one just looks very sturdy.
It does look very sturdy. If you look at it, I think this is, in my mind, what I would think of when I think of a fortress,
Yeah,
because it's just the very thick walls.
yeah. So it looks like it was built to
Yes.
protect the inside.
Yes.
So I love the history on this one because there were two construction phases, and researchers don't actually agree on the dating of the first build. Some say it would have been built as a royal Saalhof, which was a medieval manor house which served as a central hub. This is where they would have administrative meetings as well as a residence. And one estimate is that it was built in 980 AD, which would have been the late early Middle Ages. And other places, the first building in the mid 12th century as a castle complex.
So there's some
Yeah.
disputing evidence or disputing thoughts on when it was built, which I find interesting because so far the ones that we've talked about, there's kind of been a clear picture of when it was built. And this one, they can't make
They
like
can't
a,
really make up.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're not sure.
And it's quite interesting because the foundation of the Southeast Tower, which dates somewhere in between 1044 to 1216, so the range is really big, as you
Mm-hmm.
can't really say it was built in a time span of 200 years, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yes.
And dating for the second construction phase was a little more clear, with the castle being completed around 1186 to 1190. So there's like a little bit less big time span.
Ambiguity. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, because I don't know exactly how they actually date castles. I know some of it they talk about, they know from documents and records and things like that. So other than that, we'll look into that, how they
We
actually
will look
date some
into
of these
that because
castles. Yeah.
maybe we have to make an episode about the technique about finding out when a castle was built.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Yeah. So
Yes.
from the early 10th century until the beginning of the 19th century, we know that Bremserburg was the property of the archbishops of Mainz. In the 12th century, they converted the old fortress into a castle residence. And residence is important when it comes to what makes a castle, as we all know, and we explained in a different episode. In the 13th century, the Brömser family served as castellans under the authority of the Archbishop of Mainz. And in medieval Germany, castellans were governors of the castle. This means that they oversaw its operations and defenses. They were deputies of noble lords or had been appointed by monarchs. And from what I could find of them, the Brömsers were from the Whisper Valley and a branch of the von Rüdesheim family. So that comes back together. The Brömser von Rüdesheim line did not reside in the castle itself, but occupied the Brömser Hof. And the Brömser Hof is a manor house, and just a very quick aside, it houses Siegfried's mechanical cabinet, which is a museum for mechanical instruments. And this manor house is pretty amazing, with a Gothic chapel and a great hall with frescoes, which looks amazing on the pictures I saw.
Yes, it's definitely bigger than, again, like what I guess I don't know why I wouldn't have expected it, but the manor house is it's big. It's much bigger than I thought. And in 1640, French forces under Duke Henri II d'Orleans destroyed the southeastern corner, including the upper sections of the Bergfried and the Donjon, and a mine tunnel was dug beneath the Bergfried, and it was never detonated, but the remains are visible today. So it's interesting because all three of these castles actually saw battles.
Mm-hmm.
And after the Bromser line ended, the fief passed to Emmerich von Metternich in 1678. In 1811, the Counts of Ingelheim would adapt it into a romanticized country residence, and the castle would be inhabited until 1937. And then in 1941, it was acquired by Rüdesheim's town council. And can you visit the Bromser Castle? It does house a museum, but it remains closed for renovations.
Yeah. So moving right along to the Rosse Rhein, we're walking through the forested ridge above Rüdesheim am Rhein. The trail between the Niederwald Denkmal and Assmannshausen passes a structure that looks like the remains of a medieval fortress. And this is the Rosse, and it's actually an artificial ruin constructed as part of the 18th century landscape park known as the Niederwald.
Yes.
And the Rosse was created under Count Johann Friedrich von Ausstein, who began developing the Niederwald as a hunting area in 1764. Around 30 years later, he added a series of artificial antiquities, including this Rhein designed for entertainment and landscape aesthetics in the style of a late Baroque garden culture, which is so funny. Who gets the idea to put a Rhein to make it entertaining and
Yes.
aesthetic?
And so Jamie and I, we hiked this trail, and it was really fun. It's a great trail, so if you're into hiking, this is a good one to do. But yeah, so we came across, like, we hadn't read anything about it. We just got the little pamphlet saying, here's a
Yeah.
hike. And we come across this, what we thought was a castle ruin, and then we found the little informational sign for it, and we were like, oh, this, like this, yeah, this was just done for fun. So that was really
So
interesting.
funny.
hmm
Yes.
Yeah, and I think Jamie was a little bit disappointed that this wasn't a real castle. But you can see the actual real castle ruins of Berg Ehrenfels, like down on the bank
So that is at
close by.
least
So
something.
yes, there's at least something. But it was interesting when we read that, yeah, this was not real. And again, I do have pictures of this one, and I can post them.
You have to
Um,
post them, yeah.
because it looks very real.
So architecturally, the Russell consists of a lightly elevated round tower paired with a rectangular building intentionally built to resemble the remnants of small medieval castle. And it stands on a steep, nearly vertical rocky promontory, a placement chosen to maximize the dramatic views that were central to the park's design. From this vantage point, visitors look out over the Bingerloch, the Binger Mäuseturm, and the ruins of Ehrenfels
Mhm.
Castle, as you said. And the ruin sits within the Niederwald Landscape Park, a designed ornamental forest developed in the late 18th century. The park was shaped over decades by Count Urstein, who used his considerable resources to create a blend of natural scenery, constructed viewpoints, and decorative structures for the enjoyment of his guests.
And it is definitely enjoyable.
So, as you say,
Yes,
you
it's
gotta
beautiful.
visit.
You do. Mhm.
And today, the Rosso remains a popular stop for hikers, as you said, which you and
Oops.
Jamie, like, you found it. It's about 20 minutes on foot from the Niederwalddenkmal and 10 minutes from the Jagdschloss Niederwald. And the Rheinsteig Trail passes directly beside it, so you can easily see it. And the site is accessible from both Rüdesheim and Assmannhausen via the cable car. And you guys, how did you do it?
Yeah, so we didn't have any idea prior to visiting Rüdesheim, and then I saw that one of the, like, just kind of looking things up. They have this cable car that goes over the vineyards, and from there we were able to hike the trail, and I'm so glad of that I found it. And I would say, like, the cable car definitely worth it, and the hike
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the Niederwald monument, like, all
Yeah.
amazing, and so glad that we did it and had the opportunity to do it. And of course, most importantly, can you have coffee and cake at the castles we've talked about today? Not quite, but you can take the cable car that I just talked about up to the Niederwald Monument, where you will find a cafe. And here
Mm-hmm.
you can have coffee and cake with a beautiful view, which we were able to do. And it was wonderful. I think, Lara, second to when we had coffee at the Zugspitze.
What?
Yes, the view that we
Okay.
had here was second to the Zugspitze. I don't know that you can get any better than that for a view.
Okay.
But this one was also, like, you are right, you're overlooking the Rhine River and the vineyards, and it is just truly an amazing, amazing sight.
Sounds so good. I really
Yes.
want to see it now. We
And
gotta
we'll put
go.
the pictures up. Yeah, we do need to go. I would go back because when Jamie and I went, it was so hot.
Oh,
To the
true. Yeah.
point that, we were in, again, very historic town, and so Jamie and I were staying in a historic, hotel, and
Mm-hmm.
there was no most of Germany does not have air conditionings, but I was laying there and I was literally Googling, hotels that we could go to
Yeah.
with AC because that is how hot it was. So I would go back when it's a little bit cooler so that I can.
Or we will get a hotel with AC, so
Yes,
that would
or
be,
we'll just get a
yeah.
hotel with AC. Yes, because we absolutely enjoyed our stay. And the other cool thing is a lot of the hotels there also they have their own wine. Um,
That's amazing, right?
they produce
Like,
their own wine. Yes, a lot of
yeah.
these hotels as well, and that was very cool. And it was a
Yeah,
great
let's
time.
do
But
this.
yeah, let's do it. We'll add it to the list of places. I don't know how we're gonna fit it all in.
How we ever gonna finish the list, but it doesn't matter. It's on the list.
Yes, it is now on the list for us to go to together. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
guys, thank you very much for listening.
Yes.
Next week,
Thank
we will
you.
dive into, or we will go back to the northern part of Germany, and we will dive into, as Lilas just said last time, into
Mhm.
the empirical castle of Goslar. And
Yes.
it's going to be some very interesting history as well about witches. And you guys have to stay and listen to the next episode.
Yes, because Lara, I think when we went hiking in the Hearts together and you had mentioned that there was actually a festival
Yeah,
of witches, like, because um it's the Witches of the Harz Mountains is a very well-known thing in Germany. And yes, it is
we will
in
be talking
April.
about that.
So we
Yeah.
thought that it would be a good good one to talk about.
So, see you or listen to us next week.
Yes. Thank you
Bye.
guys. Bye.